Well, good morning, everyone. Before we start our regular agenda, I wanted to take a moment to introduce our new Equal Employment Opportunity Officer who just started with us, Carousel Gore. You want to come say a few words? And welcome to the Energy Commission.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I'm really glad to be here with the Energy Commission. This is a new role for the Energy Commission that I think is really exciting. The Energy Commission as a department and a commission has such an important role here in California in promoting clean energy. And while I can't do anything to do that other than get solar on my house, maybe try to drive a cleaner energy car, I think my role is really important in promoting a positive, healthy, comfortable work environment for all of the members of the Energy Commission, their staff, so that we can, as a department, focus more on our mission of promoting clean energy throughout the state of California. So I am very excited to be here. I really look forward to being a positive part of the department and adding to the positive work environment that we are already in the process of creating here. So thank you.
Well, welcome to the Commission, Carousel. It's great to have you on the team. I've asked Carousel to set up intro meetings with all the commissioners in the next week or two. I also wanted to say, over the next few weeks, we'll be adding some very senior positions that we've previously announced, including our new public advisor, Noemi Gallardo, who begins on September 23rd. And our new Chief Counsel, Darcy Hawk, who starts on October 14th. And really excited to welcome both of them. One other introduction I wanted to make, we've had great success with our summer fellows. I've heard great feedback from all of my colleagues and elsewhere in the commission about the summer internships. And we have one new summer intern who is volunteering for us for the next 2 months, who's my cousin, Clace Boileau. Where's Clace? Come stand up here, Clace. So Clace is 17 and is a cybersecurity wizard. Has just finished high school, taking a gap year before college. And you can tell us a little bit about your project, Clace.
Yeah, good morning, commissioners. Good morning, everyone. My name is Clace. I'm 17, just graduated high school. I am currently working on a project for recommendations that state-level actors can take in terms of securing the grid and the cybersecurity involving the grid, because that is not so great right now. So I look forward to working with everyone, and I hope to meet you all soon.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
Clace. And welcome. All right. Well, let's get in the agenda. Is there a motion? You had recusal. Yeah. All right.
So I'm going to... So you want to do 1A first?
1A,
okay.
yeah. Is there a motion for consent calendar item 1A?
I'll move 1A.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Scott. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And now Commissioner McAllister will.
So being chair of the board of NASIO, and this item is having to do with funding some work at NASIO, I'm going to recuse myself from item 1B.
Is there a motion for item 1B?
Move item 1B.
Moved by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second?
Second.
By Vice Chair Scott. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously with the exception of Commissioner McAllister, who is recused. Let's move on to item 2, discussion of Energy Commission progress on the joint agency report charting a path to 100% clean energy future. Tara Weeks.
Hello, Chair and Commissioners. As you know, I'm Tara Weeks, Senior Advisor to Chair Hochschild and Project Manager for SB 100 on the Energy Commission side. So my main update is on our Kickoff Workshop that we held last Thursday, September 5th, which Chair Hochschild, Commissioner McAllister, and Commissioner Douglas were all able to attend. The workshop was co-hosted by the Energy Commission, the PUC, and CARB, who are the 3 agencies tasked with writing the interagency report. The workshop was really intended to serve as a kind of first point of engagement with stakeholders and the public as we launch this effort in the report development process. Just to recap the agenda quickly, we had opening remarks from Alice Reynolds, who is the Senior Energy Advisor to Governor Newsom, and Secretary Crofit of the California Natural Resources Agency. Both speakers emphasized the importance of state agencies collaborating on implementation of the policy and emphasized that this is truly a statewide effort. The SB 100 principals and other commissioners in attendance also provided opening comments, and these were followed by staff presentations on our current clean energy policies and programs, as well as the report development process and timeline. One major theme throughout the presentations was that successful implementation of SB 100 requires thorough integration with our current clean energy programs and planning processes across agencies. Following presentations, we opened to public comment, both in person and on the phone. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of the key messages that we heard from stakeholders. One was the importance of managing electricity costs as we move toward 100% clean and renewable sources, primarily for low-income customers. Secretary Crofa and others highlighted the need to address both land use planning and system resilience in the face of climate change. A number of stakeholders commented that we need to move much more quickly on project development to not only meet our clean energy targets, but also to ensure adequate system capacity in the short term. And additionally, actions we take in the next 5 to 10 years will be critical in ensuring we meet our long-term goals. Stakeholders spoke in support of a portfolio of resources, including technologies that are not yet commercialized, and discussed various stances on particular technologies that may fall under the definition of zero carbon resources, including nuclear, hydro, and carbon capture technologies. State balancing authorities voiced their support of the effort and willingness to partner on SB 100 implementation, including working to ensure a balance between reliability, affordability, and carbon neutrality. And lastly, there was a recommendation to coordinate with the state's water agencies in SB 100 implementation. Overall, I think the workshop went really smoothly. We had about 600 participants, both in person and by phone, which I really hope indicates robust public engagement as we move forward with the process. As a next step, we will be holding 3 regional scoping workshops where we'll solicit more detailed public feedback to inform the outline of the report. The first 2 will be on September 30th in Fresno and October 8th in Diamond Bar. And the third one is tentatively scheduled for mid-October in Northern California. We're still finalizing the location. And we will have more details on those workshops shortly. Before we open to discussion, I'm hoping we can play the video. I think it should be queued up. And this is something that our media team put together to just launch this effort.
For decades, California has been a world leader on environmental protection, putting solar panels on 1 million homes and businesses and 600,000 electric cars on the road, saving energy as population boomed, greenhouse gas emissions dropped, and air quality improved, all while the state's economy thrived, growing 500,000 green jobs and driving $22 billion in clean tech investment. Today, 1/3 of California's electricity is generated by renewable energy. Under Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership, the state is charting the path to 100% clean energy by 2045.
We will continue to invest in safety, and we will never waver on achieving the nation's most ambitious clean energy goals.
Modernizing the grid to power new uses with clean electricity, from homes and buildings to buses, trucks, and more. Protecting public health and the environment, and ensuring a reliable, affordable, equitable, clean energy future for all Californians.
Great. And with that, I'd like to open it up to discussion.
Thank you, Tara, and let's also thank all the staff who worked so effectively on that SB 100 workshop last week. It was just really well put together, and really especially wanted to call out the collaboration with the other agencies, which was just spectacular. That's really what we want to see going forward, is breaking down those silos, and I was just really pleased. So let's open up any questions, comments, or reflections. You were there as well, Commissioner McAllister?
Yeah, I just reiterate. I think it was a good level actually, because it kept it sort of high level, and really, I think Tara, the main messages was like, look, this is really happening. This is a true joint agency effort that we're serious about that, and the Energy Commission's kind of holding the pen on assembling the thing, but the report truly will be joint, and the agencies will be doing different pieces. Also, I think it's important to recognize that reliability is really job one, and the ISO was there, and it's very supportive and kind of ready to engage as needed in terms of funding some quick turnaround studies and things like that. So I think all the pieces are there to really have success, and the engagement by the governor's office and the agency and just all the who's who really that was there, commenting and sort of putting their hopes and dreams and aspirations on this process, I think is really positive, because that means they're going to be engaged for the long term, and this is a long-term, multi-decadal kind of effort. So it's really, I think, gotten off to a great start. So thanks to staff. I just reiterate the thanks to you and staff and everybody who was who put it all together. That really went well.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes, I'll just join in those comments. I really enjoyed being there. It was great to see the hard work put in on the event by the staff, and the great attendance and the commitment and the comments, the public comments. I think that we've got a good framework for moving this forward, and obviously it is a long-term commitment and a long-term effort, and we're off to a good start.
Comments? Okay. Well, I'll just reiterate one point I made at the workshop, which is that 2 years ago, this vision was considered by many to be mythology. Okay. So yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the signing of SB 100, right? So Hawaii was the first state to do it, 2015. Then 1 year ago, California, Governor Brown signed the law. What has happened since then is nothing less than extraordinary. So 100% policies have been adopted in Washington, Nevada, New Mexico, Wisconsin, Connecticut, New York, Maine, District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico, and there's a bunch of others underway. So that we have almost 30% of the population of the United States today living in communities that have committed to go to 100%. And looking at the trends, they are very much in our favor. Storage is coming down, solar's coming down, wind's coming down, efficiency, et cetera. And really the role of California as an incubator of these kind of policies in these industries is having an incredible effect, something we should all be really proud of. And bear in mind, the birth of the solar industry globally began here in California, the wind industry globally began here, the electric vehicle industry, and the first energy efficiency codes and standards began here. And so what we're doing is incubating policies and industries that can take clean energy global. And something, again, we should all be very proud of and be very mindful of as we're crafting this, because we have to make this thing successful. And there's many, it's a silver buckshot solution. It's not a silver bullet. There's many things that are needed in terms of manipulating demand and electric vehicle and charging algorithms and all the rest that fit together. But that's the work that's going to be ahead. So thank you again, Tara, for stepping up, and all the team. With that, let's move on to item 3, Sequoia Data Center.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Lon Payne. I am a project manager in the CEQA Review Unit in the Environmental Office of STEP. With me is Staff Attorney Lisa DiCarlo. We're here to present a proposed order appointing a committee to oversee a small power plant exemption, or SPPE, proceeding for the Sequoia Data Center. The SPPE option is only, I'm going to start saying the exemption option because this acronym is horrific, is only available for thermal power plants between 50 and 100 megawatts, and pursuant to Public Resources Code section 25541, the exemption can only be granted if, and I quote, no substantial adverse impact on the environment or energy resources will result from the construction or operation of the proposed facility. The applicant, C1 Santa Clara LLC, filed its SPPE application on August 12th, 2019, seeking an exemption from the Commission's power plant certification process, and they are here today. The application materials were docketed on August 14th, 2019. The Sequoia Data Center consists of a building housing data servers, up to 96.5 megawatts of associated diesel-fueled backup generators, and associated equipment and connections proposed for construction in Santa Clara, California. Staff's job will be to conduct a CEQA review of the exemption application and to produce an initial study. In addition to the Sequoia Data Center, staff is currently working on the Laurelwood and Walsh Data Center projects. Staff anticipates 5 additional exemption applications for data centers in the Santa Clara and San Jose area prior to the end of the calendar year, which means that at some point staff, not to mention the hearing office and assigned committee members, may be processing 8 data center exemption applications concurrently. We just wanted to give you a heads up about that. Thank you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Unless there's questions, let's go to the applicant.
Good morning, Commissioner. Scott Galati, representing Cyrus One on the Sequoia Data Center.
morning. My name is Jeff Devine. I'm the Director of Design and Construction for Cyrus One.
I don't have any public comment cards. Hearing if there's no other public comment, we'll move to commissioner discussion. We'd like to do Commissioner Douglas as lead and Commissioner Monahan as associate for this. Do you have any other comments to add?
No. Does the applicant have any other comments to add, or?
Just wanted to remind the commission that this is a project where the emergency generators are only going to operate, once in a while for maintenance and testing, and only operate if there's a loss of power to the facility. The project has already started its work through City of Santa Clara, working through what they call the PCC process, and it already had obtained a demolition permit, and the site has been demolished. And they're ready to go when the commission is finished with its process.
All right, so I'll move approval of the committee that was suggested by the chair.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Let's move on to item 4, the 2019-2020 investment plan update for the Clean Transportation Program.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Patrick Brecht. I'm the project manager for the 2019-2020 investment plan update for the Clean Transportation Program. Today we're seeking your approval for this investment plan update. If approved, the current second revised lead commission report will be reissued as the final commission report, and this document will serve as the guide for the program's funding solicitations and awards for the fiscal year 2019-2020. The Clean Transportation Program was established by California Assembly Bill 118 in the year 2007. The program is funded through a small surcharge on California vehicle registrations, which gives us a budget of up to $100 million per year, depending on how much is collected from the surcharge. And Assembly Bill 8 extended the program to January 1st, 2024. The program provides funding support for projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions within the transportation sector, which gives us a budget of, in the transportation sector, which accounts for roughly 50% of state greenhouse gas emissions. The projects we fund also contribute to other complementary state goals, including improved air quality, providing investments in low-income and disadvantaged communities, promote economic development, increase alternative fuel use, and reduce petroleum dependence. The annual investment plan update serves as the basis for the program's funding opportunities for each fiscal year. This year's plan included 4 prior versions of the report, 3 advisory committee meetings, 1 presentation to the disadvantaged communities advisory group, and over 80 comments to our docket. As a reminder, the investment plan sets allocations for various funding categories and not individual projects. To demonstrate its commitment to diversity, the CEC adopted a resolution during the April 2015 business meeting to firmly commit to increasing the following: the participation of women, minority, disabled, veteran, and LGBT business enterprises in program funding opportunities, outreach and participation by outreach to and participation by disadvantaged communities, diversity in geographic regions, diversity and participation in CEC proceedings, and diversity in employment and promotional opportunities. This slide shows that roughly 40% of program funds have been awarded to projects located within disadvantaged and or low-income communities. The percentage actually increases to 50% when you take out statewide funding projects. However, we are determined to explore new methods for advancing and measuring equity within the Clean Transportation Program beyond just funding amounts by location. Staff solicited input on the investment plan from members of the Disadvantaged Advisory Committee, DACAG, established pursuant to SB 350 to help advise the CEC and the Public Utilities Commission on their programs. The DACAG's mission is to review and provide advice on proposed clean energy and pollution reduction programs and determine whether these proposed programs will be effective and useful in disadvantaged communities. DACAG made a series of recommendations on the investment plan. These include moving 100% of program funding towards zero-emission vehicles, among others. Looking further ahead, we expect to continue outreach and coordination with DACAG in developing future investment plan updates. Here are a few key changes from the Lead Commissioner report published in March to the second Lead Commissioner report published on August 28th. There, of course, was program rebranding to the Clean Transportation Program, incorporated recommendations from the DACAG and the third Advisory Committee meeting and workshop, funding shift toward zero-emission transportation technologies, and we added a new emphasis on equity and outreach. As captured in this table, our proposed fiscal year 2019-2020 allocations emphasize zero-emission technologies in the light, medium, and heavy-duty sectors. We believe these allocations reflect the state's goals for zero-emission vehicles, or ZEVs, near and long-term carbon reduction and improved air quality, with a focus on providing benefits for disadvantaged communities. Combining the first three rows, you can see that the allocations for ZEV infrastructure and medium and heavy-duty vehicles total $82.7 million. Additionally, there is a 2.5 proposed allocation for workforce development, with a priority to disadvantaged communities as well as ZEVs and ZEV infrastructure. The CEC has provided nearly $830 million in funding through the Clean Transportation Program and has supported a broad portfolio of fuel types. This chart captures the total amount of funding allocations to various fuel types, including a quarter into biofuels, biofuel production and distribution, shown in shades of blue, 15% toward natural gas technologies, shown in green, and a third in yellow toward electric vehicle charging infrastructure, vehicle demonstrations, incentives, and manufacturing, a fifth, shown in orange, for hydrogen refueling, infrastructure, and vehicle demonstrations, and the remainder to projects that incorporate multiple fuel types or do not address specific fuel types, shown in red. I'll now give a brief overview of each funding allocation, starting with the light-duty electric vehicle charging infrastructure. With the exception of last year, when the Energy Commission received a special one-time appropriation to expand ZEV infrastructure, our proposed $32.7 million allocation is our largest to date in this category. In fact, it's almost double our allocation in a previous normal year. This slide highlights the charging infrastructure needs that we're trying to address with our program's incentives. The electric vehicle infrastructure projections, EVI Pro, model analyzes regional demand for and quantifies these types, location, and quantities, of chargers needed to support the state's goal of 1.5 million ZEVs by 2025. Results from this model help the Executive Order B4818, which set targets of 250,000 shared charging connectors, including 10,000 DC fast chargers and 200 hydrogen stations by 2025. The dark green wedges on the bottom of this chart depict the estimated number of existing shared charging connectors, not including single-family residential chargers. The light green wedges depict the estimated number of connectors that will result from identified funding streams around the state, including our program, the state's electric utilities, and settlements from Volkswagen and NRG. Despite these investments, we estimate that the sum of existing and expected future charging ports will not be sufficient to meet the state's goals. The currently identified investments will still leave a gap, shown in red, of nearly 80,000 level 2 charger connectors and 3,600 DC fast charging connectors by 2025. In recognition of this need, our program funding allocations for charging infrastructure is notably higher than most previous investment plans, both to meet the growing needs of plug-in electric vehicles and to demonstrate the state's long-term commitment to ZEV mass market adoption. Also notably, this doesn't include the charging infrastructure that will need to satisfy the needs of medium and heavy-duty plug-in vehicles. With the proposed allocation, we'll be looking at a number of potential opportunities for Clean Transportation Program investments. First and foremost, the increased funding will help the state close the gap in needed chargers. The ultimate goal of expanding electric vehicle infrastructure is to create ubiquitous charging, or no-time charging, That transitions drivers away from the typical gas station mentality. Our California Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Project, or CalEVIP, provides a simplified process providing charging incentives in high priority regions with dedicated funding amounts and or higher incentives for sites in disadvantaged communities. We'll be looking to support innovative charging technologies and business models. These can make charging stations more appealing for potential users, accelerate the development of self-sustaining business models, and increase the utility of each charging connection. We also have funded a small number of e-mobility projects in the past to test and demonstrate the ability of ZEVs to provide innovative transportation services to low-income and/or disadvantaged communities. Finally, we have also provided funding to projects that can indirectly support our program's goals, such as regional alternative fuel readiness plans. These investments provide education, outreach, and implementation funding directly to local governments and municipalities, which know their communities best. The medium and heavy duty zero emission category focuses on the needs of medium and heavy duty vehicles, typically found in freight and fleet applications. These vehicles represent a small share of California registered vehicle stock, but also emit an outsized share of greenhouse gas, NOx, and PM 2.5 emissions. For fiscal year 2019-2020, CEC staff proposes a $30 million allocation for this category dedicated to medium and heavy duty ZEVs and ZEV infrastructure. This is a significant increase from previous fiscal years. To meet the greenhouse gas and air quality goals, this sector will need to transition to ZEV technologies, and the resources required for this transition far exceed our program's funding alone. We expect an increased demand for ZEV infrastructure in our program in response to vehicle incentives or regulations from other agencies. As the state's lead agency for fuel infrastructure deployment, the CEC focuses on the infrastructure needs for medium and heavy duty ZEVs. However, we will also remain open to funding medium and heavy duty ZEV demonstrations. In addition to vehicle and infrastructure investments, the CEC will seek ways to include grid integration, integrated storage solution, and charging management as complementary technologies. The Clean Transportation Program is the primary source for funding for hydrogen refueling stations in the state. Assembly Bill 8 directs the CEC to allocate $20 million annually to fund the initial network of 100 hydrogen refueling stations. Looking forward further out, Executive Order B 4818 set a target of 200 stations by 2025. The CEC is also interested in co-location of refueling for commercial vehicles and buses with light-duty vehicle refueling. This approach could aid in the transition of California's commercial vehicle and bus fleets to ZEV alternatives, while simultaneously strengthening the business case for light-duty hydrogen refueling. To date, the CEC has provided funding to install or upgrade 64 publicly available hydrogen stations capable of light-duty vehicle refueling. There are 40 open retail stations, 39 funded by our program. Another 24 stations are under construction. 13 of these are or will be located in disadvantaged communities. Together, these 64 stations will have the capacity to dispense up to 17,000 kilograms per day, the equivalent of 24,000 fuel cell electric vehicles. Industry reports there are over 7,000 fuel cell electric vehicles currently on the road. The investment plan also includes funding for zero and near zero carbon fuel production. This can include a broad range of alternative fuels. Biofuels, defined as non-petroleum diesel substitutes, gasoline substitutes, and biomethane, represent the largest existing stock of alternative fuel in California. In addition, demand for renewable hydrogen will increase in coming years as more fuel cell electric vehicles are sold. Investments in this area have the potential to produce high volumes of low-carbon alternative fuels to demonstrate new and more efficient production technologies. For fiscal year 2019-2020, staff proposes a $10 million allocation for zero and near zero carbon fuel production. This funding will be used for conversions of waste streams projects and for renewable hydrogen production. Other state regulations and programs also provide key support for zero and near zero carbon fuel production projects, including credits under the Low Carbon Fuel Standard, the CalRecycle Organics Grant Program, the California Department of Food and Agriculture Dairy Digester Research and Development Program, and the Dairy Biomethane Pilot Projects approved by the CUPC for natural gas utilities. The CEC has made significant investments for the training and development of California's alternative fuel workforce, which has shown growth in size and scope. Our program has partnered with a number of state agencies, other agencies or entities, such as the California Employment Training Panel. This partnership provides training to incumbent workers in companies. There we go. Am I eating the mic? Sorry. Our program has partnered with a number of other entities, such as the California Employment Training Panel. This partnership provides training incumbent workers in companies, organizations, and other public agencies that advance the state's development and use of clean transportation technologies. As another example, Cerritos Community College District recently received funding to train electric school bus operators and maintenance staff. For fiscal year 2019-2020, we are proposing a $2.5 million allocation for workforce training projects, and will continue to work with partner agencies to determine how to maximize benefits for our investments. This slide once again summarizes the proposed allocations for 2019-2020. Thank you for our investment update. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I also will mention we have 3 representatives from 3 public organizations that would like to speak about the plan, and they are Stan Greshner, Chair of the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group, Richard Corey, Executive Officer of the California Air Resources Board, and Tyson Eckerly, Deputy Director of Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure with the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Did you want to make your remarks now, Tyson? And
I can. This is thank you. Stan Greshner with Grid Alternatives, which is the country's largest nonprofit clean energy provider serving low-income families and disadvantaged communities around the country, and certainly throughout California. I also serve as the chair of the Disadvantaged Community Advisory Group, and I just want to thank again Commissioner Monahan and the CEC staff for inviting the advisory group into the development of this plan. And today I'm representing the DACAG's comments. And Patrick already noted the recommendations that we had submitted to the commission. I won't go through them all here. We'll, in this slide, I just it reflects the recommendations that were incorporated directly into the updated plan. And these are very significant and substantive inclusions into the plan, including moving, prioritizing community engagement and outreach in disadvantaged communities, and identifying opportunities for community groups to directly engage and support and possibly be funded to help communities participate in these programs. Certainly we were supportive of the move to 100% zero emission fuels. We're supportive of the no investments going toward the natural gas, and then changes to medium and heavy duty and the carbon fuel production to 100% clean. So we appreciate those being included. The other was, there's a need as we make these moves into clean transportation to have a trained workforce. And we supported and advocated for additional funding for workforce training opportunities, and Patrick noted that there was additional funding put towards those, and certainly we supported the partnership with ETP and the great work that they do to train folks up. And one of the recommendations that we discussed at the last advisory committee meeting was how do we update that committee, and who makes up that committee, and how do we have more participation from community members and community groups in that, which there is very little right now. And the commissioner and staff and the advisory committee members, I think, were very supportive of just re-examining how the makeup of that that committee is made up in the future, hopefully add more representation from community groups. A few items were not included in the update. I'll just focus on one, which I think can be addressed and be an ongoing conversation that we as the DACAG has with the commission. But that's, $100 million is a lot of money. We're not going to say that it's not. But in the scope of like what we're trying to do in California and the transformative kind of market we're trying to have here, $100 million doesn't go along. Isn't that large, right? And on the solar side, we have $100 million a year going towards just multifamily affordable housing, for example. So there's a lot of opportunities to make investments in different types of technologies. We will continue to advocate for low-income communities and disadvantaged communities being the places where those investments are made. And I think as pilots are being and programs are being identified and rolled out, we want to continue to work with the commissioner and her staff and the commission staff on ensuring equity is part of those solicitations, part of those RFPs, and making sure disadvantaged communities continue to have investments from the clean energy or clean transportation side. And these other items certainly will, I think, as well can be addressed in solicitations as they come up. But again, we just appreciate the inclusion of so many of our ideas into the plan and look forward to continuing to work with the commission on this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Let's go to Richard.
All right. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Richard Corey, Executive Officer of the California Air Resources Board. I'm here to extend our strong support for the investment plan. I think it focuses on what we all know to be true. We can't get to our health-based air quality standards, our GHG reduction targets in SB 32, our carbon neutrality, or protect communities without a significant transformation of the transportation sector, substantially focused on zero-emission technologies. The plan really does that. And I want to acknowledge both the staff, the commission staff, as well as the process that they've gone through for the last many, many months with stakeholders and in collaboration with us, which we think has been really a hallmark of an effective game plan for moving the state forward in concert with a number of other activities. We think it's critical. We think the work and focus on zero-emission technologies, including battery electric vehicles as well as fuel cell electric vehicles, they both have a role in the mix. The focus on the multi-year hydrogen funding, we think in terms of the signal that'll send to the market, we think is equally important, as is the focus on medium and heavy duty as well as light duty technologies. There's no silver bullet, as the chair indicated. All these technologies have a role, and clearly the significant role and focus of the investments in the infrastructure are a key element to move us forward, and that collaboration with you all will clearly continue, and it needs to as we move forward with the challenge in front of us. As well as the last point, which is critical, is the opportunities that this transition is going to afford with respect to the economy and employment opportunities. So the workforce development and the preparedness in terms of the next generation of PhDs, scientists, technicians, engineers that are critical to prepare us as we work through this transition. The plan recognizes this, and holistically and as a package portfolio, we are supportive of it. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Richard, and for those comments. And let me also thank you for the incredible work you and your team are doing. I've been, along with all my colleagues, just incredibly proud of ARB, particularly this year with the nonsense that's going on with the fuel economy standards nationally, and just having ARB play the role that you have. It's extraordinary. We're lucky to have your leadership and Mary's and the rest of your team. So thank you. Tyson?
Well, thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners. I totally agree with what Richard just said, so just add a little bit there. But my role on a daily basis is to focus on implementation of zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. And really, it's a ground game at this point, and I think the Clean Transportation Funding Program makes a huge difference. It opens the eyes of communities to the potential for scale and kind of how they can focus attention on development. It opens doors for businesses, so it's just hard, like right in the right place. As has been laid out very well, as we have really aggressive zero-emission vehicle targets for both for infrastructure and deployment. I think this plan rightly prioritizes meeting them. We really, it's clear we need light-duty infrastructure, both plug-in charging and hydrogen fueling. We need medium and heavy-duty infrastructure. And the medium and heavy-duty presents some really unique opportunities now, just as the market. There's a lot of stuff that's really starting to crest, and I think the Energy Commission is in a great spot to help really facilitate that growth and open doors. Also, we need the workforce to support this growth, right? And I think most importantly, we probably need access into that workforce, and I think it really appreciate the Energy Commission's prioritization of that. So just really in summary, just a strong support for the plan, and thank you for the work you're doing, and really excited about where this is going, and I think there's big opportunities here, so thank you.
Okay, before we get to Commissioner comments and Commissioner Monahan can say some words, we have quite a bit of public comment, so bear with us as I go through the list here. Let's begin, if we could, with Will Barrett from the American Lung Association.
Thank you very much. I'm Will Barrett with the American Lung Association. First of all, I'd like to really thank the staff for their work across this whole process. I think they've run a really open dialogue across the way, and the process has really been improved because of it, so I do appreciate that. The Lung Association strongly supports moving forward with the plan. We appreciate that it really does help to move forward with California's clean air, climate change, and public health goals. We support the emphasis in the plan on the zero-emission transportation. We think that this transition, as has been discussed, is critical to meeting our clean air and climate goals to protect public health in California. We also support the real focus on disadvantaged communities, really making sure that that voice was heard. The voice of the DACAG was really important to this process, and we do look forward to, as a member of the committee, having more of that voice on the advisory committee going forward. We think it's critically important and applaud the attention there. We do think that the plan really does a good job of focusing on filling the gaps in zero-emission infrastructure on the light-duty side, continuing the investment in hydrogen infrastructure as outlined in AB 8, and then really the focus on zero-emission technologies in the heavy-duty sector. We think that that is a critical need to protect our air and our community's health. We know that the funding sources across the board have not kept up with demand there. So we do think that as this plan moves forward, which we fully support, that the Commission and the ARB and our transportation agencies should really be focusing on what we can do to develop a really strong, consistent funding source to clean up the heavy-duty sector. We know that this is a growing need. We know that the funding has not kept pace with that need. And we know that the longer we wait to invest in these zero-emission technologies, the further our goals are going to be out of reach. So we really do appreciate all the work. We do encourage that continued focus on zero-emission technologies and on making sure that incentive funding and other resources are available on a consistent basis so that we don't have a sort of feast or famine food fight every year. It's really critical, I think, and all of us as stakeholders should be working on that together. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And again, I think this plan makes for a healthier air in California and a healthier population. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to Meredith Alexander from CalSTART. And if I could ask everyone just say one sentence about your organization, just for the benefit of the audience, so we know who you are.
Thanks. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Hochschild and Commissioners. Meredith Alexander with CalSTART. We are a member-based nonprofit with over 210 members from all across the transportation sector, and especially with a focus on medium and heavy-duty vehicles here in California. So we just wanted to commend this commission on your leadership position on infrastructure necessary to support ZEVs. And we wanted to state our support for the proposed $30 million allocation for medium and heavy-duty vehicle infrastructure. And we appreciate the significant increase over last year's funding. We also support the inclusion of medium and heavy-duty fueling in the $20 million for hydrogen and the clarification in the revised version of the plan. And we also wanted to emphasize the importance of coordination with ARB and other statewide incentive programs for ZEVs that are trying to transform this industry, which is a really challenging task. And just some more specific comments. We wanted to support the proposal to consider a block grant structure for the allocation of funding, as we think this would allow the funds to be distributed most efficiently. keeping pace with the really fast pace that we see with the vouchers going out via HVIP, and also some really ambitious regulatory deadlines being set for transit buses and airport shuttles at CARB. And also, we see an immediate need for technical assistance grants, particularly for large public fleets like transit agencies, to help them understand their infrastructure needs and craft a comprehensive plan. We think this would also help avoid throwaway infrastructure, which is a real concern as fleets grow rapidly. And we think this would be a great use of last year's funds, the $18 million designated for medium and heavy duty, at least a part of those, to get the money out the door as quickly as possible. And we also, in addition to technical assistance, we urge the Commission to consider what we're labeling fleet infrastructure deployment subsidies for site design and hardware costs for those fleets that are ready to deploy their infrastructure now and are taking delivery of zero-emission vehicles in the next year or two. And we also suggest that vehicles subsidized through HVIP or other statewide programs be given priority for funding. And we think, giving away smaller amounts of money using the $30 million and the $18 million from last year could allow you to assist over 200 fleets, which would really make an impact. So we thank you for your consideration of our comments and again commend you on this significant milestone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's move on to Eileen Tutt from the Electric Transportation Community Development Corporation.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Eileen Tutt. I'm representing today the Electric Transportation Community Development Corporation. We are a newly formed nonprofit that was created to expand on CalETC's, the California Electric Transportation Coalition's, very successful Prove It campaign. We are looking at building access to transportation electrification in communities most impacted by pollution and economic disparity. The mission is to increase clean transportation in communities while creating economic opportunity derived from the shift from petroleum to electricity and other clean fuels. First, I want to really thank the Energy Commission staff and Commissioner Monahan and Commissioner Scott and all the commissioners for creating the clean transportation plan that you have before you. It recognizes the imperative of investment in zero-emission vehicle technologies, and we really are at a pivotal point, not just on the light-duty side, but as you've referenced in the plan on the medium and heavy-duty side. These vehicles are coming to market very, very quickly, but if we want to expand the market, we need a significant investment, particularly in the vehicles and the infrastructure. So as you shift from staff and the Commission from the development of a plan to the implementation of the plan, I just have three requests I'd like to make. And the first of all, I really want to emphasize and support this inclusion of the disadvantaged communities representatives. I think that's really important. But as you consider programs to fund, I think it's important to look at synergies between these three investment pots or four investment pots. They don't always, projects don't necessarily always fall into one. It might not just be a medium and heavy duty program. It may also be an infrastructure. There's going to be some crossover. So I would appreciate some consideration of synergies between the different pots of money. And then in terms of the disadvantaged community benefits, we would like to emphasize that it really needs to go beyond the CalEnviroscreen quotes most disadvantaged communities. There are a lot of communities impacted by pollution, rural and urban, and it's really important to look at not just what's identified as the worst by CalEPA's Enviroscreen, which we support, but all communities that are heavily impacted by pollution or very substantial economic disparity. And then finally, I think that it's important as you fund these programs to think about new entrants into the programs. So sometimes there's preference given to people who have previously implemented successful programs, and I think that's important, but I just want to say that you don't want to stifle new entrants and new innovation and new ideas. So I would like that to be considered. So with that, I just want to say I really urge your approval today, and thank you so much for this plan.
Well, thank you for those comments. Let's move on to Jessica Melton from PG&E.
Good morning, commissioners and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. PG&E strongly supports California's greenhouse gas reduction and air quality goals. The state has made a lot of progress, but significant work is still required in order to meet the deep reductions needed to limit the impacts of climate change. The transportation sector remains the largest source of both GHG emissions and air pollutants. State incentives have and will continue to play a critical role in fostering the necessary changes in the market and technology needed in this sector. The CEC's Clean Transportation Program has done an admirable job over the past 10 years in helping to foster innovation in alternative fuels and technologies. The variety of technology types and projects funded by this program is crucial. PG&E urges the CEC to continue to support as many alternative technologies as possible, rather than excluding categories like natural gas vehicles from the funding plan. A recent Air Resources Board panel on deep decarbonization pathways emphasized the need for flexibility, optionality, and keeping all tools and technologies on the table because reaching carbon neutrality by mid-century will be very challenging. In the funding plan report, CEC staff suggests that funding for NGVs would be redundant because significant incentives for NGVs are available through CARB's Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Program. However, in a recent ARB HVIP workshop, ARB staff acknowledged that their funding program is oversubscribed and cuts are needed to meet their budget. One staff proposal is cutting out all near zero funding. ARB staff at that meeting pointed out that NGVs could still get funding from other programs. PG&E urges the CEC and ARB to better coordinate their funding programs to avoid a situation in which funding for NGVs gets eliminated from both agencies due to assumptions of funding being available elsewhere. Low NOx natural gas trucks are a critical tool in helping to achieve near-term reductions where zero-emission truck technologies are not yet readily available in the medium and heavy-duty sectors. It is important to reduce air pollutant emissions as quickly as possible given their negative health impacts and the rapidly approaching Clean Air Act attainment targets. PG&E believes that increased use of all alternative fuels and technologies will be necessary to achieve our state's goals, and that they can complement rather than compete with each other. We therefore request that the CEC reconsider the funding plan to include incentives for NGV trucks and infrastructure. Thank you again for your consideration of these comments.
Thank you. Let's go to Sarah Raffleson from EVgo. I'm not mispronouncing your last name, Sarah.
Hi, good morning. Sarah Raffleson, you're very close. From EVgo, I'm our Director of Market Development, and our one sentence about EVgo, so we are the largest provider of public fast charging infrastructure, which is really critical for fleets, for people who don't have access to charging at home or the workplace, like apartment dwellers, and also, of course, for long distance trips. And I'm here today to thank Energy Commission staff, the chair, and commissioners for their increased focus on ZEV with today's plan, and we recommend for the plan to be approved as is. We believe that the plan has been strengthened by the focus on ZEV, and notably, we thank the Energy Commission for their focus on infrastructure, both in the light duty, but also, as CalSTART mentioned, in the medium and heavy duty space. And the light duty space in particular, we really think that the program will continue to build upon Cali VIP, which has been a really successful program run through the Energy Commission. One last kind of clerical issue in the investment plan, just the plan uses 2017 data on EVgo and Energy's infrastructure investments. So in our comment letter, we included the updated plans that we must submit quarterly to the CPUC, and hope that upon passage that it could be amended to reflect the 562 fast chargers that have been deployed by settlement. So in conclusion, we support the plan, and thank you again.
Thank you. Let's move on to Charles Watson from Proterra.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Charles Watson on behalf of Proterra. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments on the investment plan. Proterra is a leading U.S. manufacturer of zero-emission battery electric transit buses. Previous investment plans have helped make it possible to move Proterra's headquarters to California, manufacture electric buses in the City of Industry, and assemble long-range batteries in Burlingame. Thank you again. Proterra supports the proposed investment plan update, including the focus of investments in zero-emission technologies and a specific allocation of $30 million for medium and heavy-duty zero-emission vehicles and infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Hannah Goldsmith, California Electric Transportation Coalition. Following that will be Ryan Kenny from Clean Energy.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Hannah Goldsmith. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the California Electric Transportation Coalition, or CalETC. We're a nonprofit trade association that seeks to expand and accelerate transportation electrification, and our members include utilities, automakers, charging station providers, and others that are supportive of transportation electrification. So CalETC is a member of the Advisory Committee for the Clean Transportation Program, and we're pleased to support the 2019-2020 investment plan for the program today. We recognize that the funding need for advanced technology vehicles and infrastructure to realize California's aggressive ZEV air quality, climate change, public health, and economic goals is much higher than the available funding for programs like this one and the California Air Resources Board's Low Carbon Transportation Program. Given limited public funding and CARB's planned suite of regulations requiring the state's transportation system to transition to zero emissions, we find the prioritization of zero-emission vehicles and ZEV fueling infrastructure in the plan appropriate and necessary. We look forward to providing additional input as the funding for these categories is further divided into programs and as solicitations are developed, but wanted to provide some initial recommendations today. We believe that the scoring criteria should look positively on synergy among funding goals, as Eileen previously mentioned. For example, projects that achieve advancement for multiple goals, like increasing ZEV infrastructure, accomplishing workforce training, and deploying ZEVs should be scored positively and broadly, and not too narrowly, based on one component at the disadvantage of others. We also urge the Commission to consider emphasizing benefits for disadvantaged communities beyond only the top communities identified by CalEnviroScreen to allow for more disadvantaged communities to experience benefits firsthand. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Ryan Kenny from Clean Energy, to be followed by John Constantino from Trillium.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ryan Kenny with Clean Energy. I have a couple of significant points I'd like to make. We are very concerned about the reduction of low NOx trucks out of the program, along with a reduction in alternative fuel production dollars. The program investment plan draft mentions that in November 2018, the advisory committee was told by ARB representatives that there is, quote, considerable funding available for low NOx engine incentives through the Clean Truck, Bus, and Voucher program, which incorporates HVIP and low NOx incentives. And we are part of a 45-member coalition that is opposed to ARB removing low NOx truck funding from HVIP in the 2019-2020 fiscal year. We have asked ARB over the last 3 months numerous times, are they going to eliminate the funding? They have not said no. So we are very concerned that the CEC will also eliminate funding for low NOx trucks along with ARB. And we're a little concerned that why this was included in the draft investment plan, and that we're wondering if the agencies are actually talking, because this is a major point. And who's minding the store? Who's going to fund low NOx trucks? I believe Mr. Corey has left, but maybe there's another representative from ARB who could confirm that HVIP will indeed fund low NOx trucks next year, and at what amount, and if not, why. I also would like to mention that the program actually is not a zero-emission program as defined in AB 118. It does mention, the statute mentions that the program shall, not may, shall, be to develop and deploy technology and alternative and renewable fuels in the marketplace without adopting any one preferred fuel or technology. The statute also mentions that to displace petroleum fuels, there needs to be a diverse portfolio of viable alternative fuels that meet petroleum reduction and alternative fuel use goals. And then it goes on to mention in statute, all the following shall be eligible for funding: demonstration and deployment projects that optimize alternative and renewable fuels for existing and developing engine technologies. So we do believe that there is room for low NOx trucks in this program. The $10 million that it would normally receive is just a drop in the bucket for what ZEVs would need for EV charging, for example. And there are federal attainment deadlines that need to be met by 2023 and 2031. And we believe that not funding low NOx trucks is going to be a major barrier to doing so. Also, I'd like to mention that there aren't any major commercial readiness Class 7 and 8 ZEVs on the market anytime soon. So with that, we ask you to fund low NOx trucks in this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to John Constantino from Trillium.
Hi, good morning, Chairman and Chair, Commissioners. John Costantino on behalf of Trillium. They are the alternative fuels brand for Love's family of companies, and they produce heavy-duty infrastructure for hydrogen, electric vehicles, heavy-duty, renewable diesel, and renewable natural gas. So they have a different perspective that they're sort of broad-based, and the focus of the plan on only EV is where the concern is, right? We support EV, we support hydrogen. It's the fact that renewable natural gas is being cut out here, and I doubt anybody from ARB can mention the HVIP plan because it comes out publicly next week. But every indication we've gotten is that there's no more renewable natural gas funding in that program either. And so there's been a lot of discussion about there's no silver bullet, but what we've heard today is light-duty ZEV, medium-duty ZEV, heavy-duty ZEV, hydrogen ZEV. That sounds like the same bullet, just different calibers. And if you really want to have a diverse portfolio, you need to keep focusing on near-term air quality, near-term commercialization of heavy-duty equipment, and that includes low NOx and renewable natural gas. PG&E did mention the decarbonization panel that was at ARB, and one of the pillars of that panel was renewable fuels. And they described how difficult it will be to meet the carbon neutrality goals of the state, and you need renewable fuels, not just battery electric technology. So with that, we urge you to reconsider the funding for renewable natural gas vehicles in this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Rebecca Baskins from the California Advanced Biofuels Alliance, to be followed by Tim Carmichael from SoCalGas.
Good morning, Rebecca Baskins on behalf of the California Advanced Biofuels Alliance. We're the state's not-for-profit trade association for biodiesel and renewable diesel. We also would like to echo the comments of our concerns of funding being cut out for low NOx trucks. The AB 118 funds are meant to be technology neutral, and we believe this funding plan is not. We appreciate the hard work of the Clean Transportation Program and look forward to working with you in the future to see more balance. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Corey Bullis from CRNR. Oh, sorry, Tim. Oh, Sim, go ahead, Tim. Sorry, my mistake. And then followed by Corey Bullis. Easier.
I won't take that personally. Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Carmichael, Southern California Gas Company. While we're supportive of continued significant investments in hydrogen, we are opposed to the plan that is before you today, primarily because it does not reflect a reasonable balance in investments in technology development and deployment of technologies that are ready to go today to reduce emissions today. The staff did a good job of highlighting the emissions from trucks, but what was not mentioned is the numbers, and the numbers matter. Today, there are about 1 million trucks on the roads in California. Your staff estimated this summer, or released an estimate this summer, that they expect that number to grow to 1.2 million in 2030. ARB's 2019 estimate of where we'll be with EV heavy-duty trucks, medium and heavy-duty trucks in 2030 is 40,000. So 40,000 out of 1.2 million. That is not going to have a meaningful impact on either smog-forming emissions or GHG emissions. On the other sector that this plan is proposing to reduce funding for is the renewable fuels pot. Mary Nichols has been quoted a few times in the last year or 18 months, noting that without a short-lived climate pollutant plan, California does not have a climate strategy. The renewable fuels part of your funding is significant to the development of renewable fuels projects, to the short-lived climate pollutant plan, and that synergy that has been highlighted between heavy-duty trucks, near-zero heavy-duty trucks, that can run on renewable fuels. Mr. Greshner made the point very well about the fact that the CEC should be investing $1 billion a year. Unfortunately, you don't have $1 billion. You've got $100 million. And we've got to work with what you've got, and you've got to make the most of that funding. Your own staff evaluated the near zero emission funding and found that it was one of, if not the most effective program that this pot of money has funded over the years. I encourage you to review that. It's an important analysis. Look at what's working and continue to invest in it. So today we cannot support this plan. While we support continued investment in hydrogen, we need to be putting more money into reductions today and in the near term for near zero heavy duty trucks and for renewable fuels. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Corey Bullis from CR&R.
Good morning, Corey Bullis on behalf of CR&R Environmental Services. We are a waste hauler based down in Southern California. We serve about 3 million residents in multiple counties, but we also operate a large anaerobic digester in Riverside County that has been previously funded with Energy Commission funding from this program, which we are grateful for. So I just want to take a minute to say, thank you for the inclusion or the continued inclusion of near zero emission in the fuel production category of the funding plan. One thing, though, that I wanted to reemphasize from our comment letter is just the nexus with this and short-lived climate pollutants and SB 1383, of course. We are making a significant investment in recycling organic waste and using that to fuel up our low NOx natural gas vehicles. So it's all in-state renewable natural gas that's being produced, consistent with the goals of SB 1383. And by 2025, CalRecycle is going to be requiring local governments and their haulers to be diverting an additional 7.5 million tons of organic waste. As far as we can tell, we're going to need an all-the-above strategy to recycle that organic waste. That means composting, anaerobic digestion, and wastewater treatment plants. So we just wanted to make sure that we continue to emphasize that and keep SB 1383 and short-lived climate pollutants top of mind in our funding programs. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 members of the public wishing to comment by phone. Before I turn to them, is there anyone else in the room who's not yet had a chance? Okay, with that, let's go to David Woolley at the UC Berkeley Goldman School.
Hello, this is David Woolley, Executive Director of the Environmental Center at the UC Berkeley Goldman School of Public Policy. I just want to state support for the increase in funding for heavy-duty zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. And I just want to point out from the experience we've had in Oakland and the Oakland port that a lot of times the main constraint is the absence of electric supply infrastructure to support charging equipment. So I'm very glad to see this increase and support that part of the plan and the rest of the plan as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Morgan Caswell, Port of Long Beach.
My name is Morgan Caswell, and I am an environmental specialist for the Port of Long Beach. We are the second busiest seaport in the United States. I want to commend the CEC on the Clean Transportation Plan as proposed. As you know, the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach updated the Clean Air Action Plan in 2017, setting targets for zero-emission terminal equipment by 2030 and zero-emission heavy-duty trucks by 2035. We are working hard to improve air quality and public health in disadvantaged communities that surround the ports. And through our planning process, we identified that ZEV infrastructure costs for the Port of Long Beach alone will total approximately $800 million. While the utilities are offering funding for infrastructure, there is still a need for funding above and beyond what has been committed, and we strongly support the increased allocation to medium and heavy-duty zero-emission infrastructure. We also want to applaud the investment in hydrogen refueling infrastructure and workforce development. And on behalf of the Board of Harbor Commissioners, thank you once again for your partnership and support of Port of Long Beach projects to date, and we support this plan.
Thank you. Let's move on to Todd Campbell, Clean Energy.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Todd Campbell. I represent Clean Energy as their Vice President of Public Policy and Regulatory Affairs, but I also serve as the Chair of the California Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition. I want to thank the Commission and staff for their hard work. Unfortunately, as was previously stated, we do not support the Clean Transportation Plan as written, as its original intent. Just wanted to emphasize that we were one of the founding supporters of this program back in 2007 with then Fabian Nunez, who is the Speaker of the Assembly. And the intent of the program was originally to support the low carbon fuel standard, both in fuel production and alternative fuel vehicles. And given the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions on a significant scale, as well as ambient air pollution, which I thought slide 14 really presented well. You look at 3% of the vehicles are medium and heavy-duty trucks, yet they're responsible for 23% of the greenhouse gas emissions, 60% of the NOx emissions, and 52% of the PM 2.5 emissions. It clearly is a huge issue for California. It's something that we really need to get a hold of. And it's already challenging to penetrate these markets with zero-emission and near-zero-emission technologies. It's overwhelming, and I agree with the statements that we just don't simply have enough money to do what we need to be doing to protect public health. At the same time, near-zero has been removed from the program, and near-zero strategies are a substantial, significant tool to reduce emissions, not just in terms of NOx emissions, not in just terms of PM emissions, but also for greenhouse gas emissions. And I agree with the prior speaker that, voiced Mary Nichols' call that if we're not focusing on short-lived climate pollutants, we are not going to meet our goals. And the low-carbon fuel standard, which the program originally was to support, is far from a success. We have a long way to go. We're barely meeting our 2020 goals, and I hope we meet our 2030 goals. But in order to do that, we need a very strong, supportive program here at the Energy Commission that will continue to make sure that renewable fuels are being produced across the market, and that also there are vehicles that will actually exist to take those fuels. There have been comments. I appreciate Richard Corey's statement about there's no one silver bullet. I agree. We agree wholeheartedly with that statement. We think we need to, like PG&E mentioned, make zero and near zero complement, not compete. And I would also argue that the challenge to electrify transportation across the state is not going to happen overnight. And we need to really learn from our mistakes. But putting every dollar into electrification or the hydrogen industry is a mistake at this point in time. Specific example,
Sir,
Metro.
I'm sorry, you're out of time. It's been 3 minutes.
I'm out of time. Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just say thank you very much for your consideration. We consider ourselves a very strong.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let me thank all the stakeholders for engaging in the process and for sharing their comments, and the staff for working so diligently, as well as the Disadvantaged Community Advisory Council. Really appreciate, Stan, you being here on behalf of the whole committee, and also my colleague and friend, Vice Chair Scott, who's worked the last 6 years, really got the division into a good place, and when Commissioner Monahan arrived and took on the topic, we were very grateful for her diligence and expertise, and thank you for preparing the plan. So let's hear from you.
Well, I too want to thank staff. This was quite a laborious process. And so in particular, Patrick, who we gave the talk, Charles Smith, Kevin Barker, John Butler, the whole team. This has really been quite a lift on the staff's part, and they did a great job. And I want to thank Stan and the DACAG for engaging. They, we kind of came to them at the 11th hour saying, we really want your advice, can you help us? And they really stepped up. So just thank you for that. We look forward to continuing to work with you and the DACAG as we implement this investment plan and as we try to figure out how better to be attentive to equity and how to do community outreach in a way that really brings new partners to the table and new participants to our program. Thanks to the advisory committee. Again, this has been an unusual process, and they really have stepped up. We got a lot of comments. What was it, 80-ish comments into on the plan? So really, we had a lot of public participation in a way I think that was somewhat unprecedented. And thanks to Vice Chair Scott for all she's done to cultivate this program and bring it to what it is today. I also want to note that she did have a cameo in the PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if anybody noticed, but the driver of that fuel cell vehicle and her smiling face, that was Vice Chair Scott. So we had to make hard choices in this investment plan. And we recognize that. And we heard some of the concerns around a shift towards more emphasis on zero emission. I will say we did this with a lot of public input and a lot of consideration around California's goals, what we're seeing as barriers to achieving some of California's aggressive goals on decarbonization and electrification of the transportation sector, and made that conscientious decision to increase our emphasis on zero emission. What we're seeing globally is that sales of internal combustion engines in the light-duty vehicle sector have peaked. Sales of EVs are on the rise. Bloomberg New Energy Finance projects that by 2037, more than half of global sales will be electric by 2037. And California, we should be ahead of that in terms of reaching a tipping point, where electric vehicles, especially in the light-duty vehicle sector, outcompete internal combustion vehicles. So we're mindful that this tremendous potential exists, and yet what we're facing is a big barrier in terms of access to charging infrastructure. There's a barrier in terms of vehicle cost as well, but the near-term barrier we're seeing is we need to have more infrastructure on the ground serving diverse communities, not just people who can afford to have a Tesla in their garage, but people who maybe are car sharing and are living in an apartment building and need alternatives. We've also prioritized zero emission heavy duty vehicles and infrastructure. I would say that is a little behind the market compared to battery electric passenger vehicles, but there's a lot of progress happening both on batteries and fuel cells, and we want to be able to, again, have California just be the leader on showing how we're going to reduce diesel pollution, protect communities, and accelerate zero-emission drive. Let's see. I also want to emphasize that this plan recognizes that we need to integrate EVs in the grid carefully so that they provide a grid benefit. If we do it wrong, it's going to be bad for the grid. It's going to be more difficult to integrate renewables. So the plan is very tentative, especially when we're talking about heavy-duty transportation electrification, which on the one hand offers a big load, so big opportunity to integrate renewables, to soak up that daytime solar, use it for transportation electrification. But if we do it wrong, we create extreme stress on the grid, and that's going to increase costs, and it's going to increase costs to ratepayers. So we just have to make sure that we are doing transportation right to be able to capitalize on its benefits, and this plan was very attentive to that. I am really excited to figure out how we do a better job on community outreach, and I think that is something we are going to work hard on this year, is to figure out how do we make it so that you don't necessarily have to hire a consultant and be a really like big company to be able to get access to our funds. We want to make sure that we create processes that allow diverse stakeholders to be able to engage in our grant programs. So I heartily endorse this plan. I'm looking forward to your comments and questions and your thoughts about it.
Great. Other commissioner comments?
Sure. I just want to also echo the Clean Transportation Program. It has been such an influential program, I think, across California. We have brought manufacturing like Proterra and ChargePoint to the state. The program has had a ton of flexibility and creativity, including car share programs, bringing electric vehicles and e-mobility to communities across California. We've had an opportunity really to do a lot of partnerships and collaborations, especially those with our friends at the Department of Defense and also at the seaports across California. The ports have been fantastic partners in really helping us kick the tires and test out the different technologies. You know, it's no secret to any of you all that I am a fan of the low NOx natural gas engine. The Energy Commission helped put the investment in to fund the development of those engines. But I also worry very much about how we make our transition to this near zero and zero emission technology future that we need to be in by 2030, 2040 to achieve our climate change goals. And I worry a lot that the infrastructure is going to be the limiting factor because the amount of investment that overall that has gone into infrastructure is quite a bit less than the amount of investment overall that's gone into vehicles. So anyway, as the program goes forward, I just hope that kind of the flexibility, the innovation, the creativity, the influentialness, if that's a word, of it will continue. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Commissioner McAllister?
Yeah, just quickly, I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this, certainly from staff and all of the stakeholders. I mean, it's really, our lifeblood is our process. So, when it can contribute to a good outcome like this, it makes life better for the long term, really, for California. I just wanted to express gratitude and optimism about the attention to the grid issues around transportation. There's going to be massive new loads coming onto the grid, not only from EVs, but also from electrification of different loads. And we're sort of navigating, the policy trajectory forward for that to see, define the details of how much and when and where. But it's very clear that the big dog in electrification is going to be EVs. And the technology and, issues that we have, the abilities that we have, the technology we have now, it makes a lot of things possible that make me optimistic. And yet reliability, we can't lose sight. We heard about that, and we emphasized that heavily at the SB 100 workshop the other day. And reliability just has to be job one. Maybe that's the Ford tagline. I'm not sure if it's still. Maybe it seems appropriate to say that's job one. But in terms of participation in the SB 100, technical work and forecasting and planning going forward, this is critical. And then also in load management standards that I anticipate kicking off here in the next few months in a pre-rulemaking. The EV side of things is going to be interesting to talk about in terms of how we take advantage of the load side to really stabilize the grid and actually be a positive force on the grid. And I think EVs will be front and center there. So anyway, like the plan and am in full support.
Commissioner Douglas, comments? Okay. Well, in closing, I just want to thank Commissioner Monahan for her terrific leadership on this. And, to point out, we're voting today on the plan for, the Energy Commission's piece of this, but this is part of a larger mosaic. It includes other things like public outreach. Vice Chair Scott was instrumental, along with Mary Nichols, in starting Velos. We shared that video that was produced with Governor Schwarzenegger this summer. That's gotten 11 million views. The negotiations now with the auto companies on fuel economy standards. I mean, California is playing an incredible leadership role here. The piece I wanted to, and I am a strong supporter of this plan, and part of the reason why is I want to connect it to what we talked about earlier in the agenda of getting to 100%. So we're at 55% carbon-free electricity on the grid today. We're going to 100%, and one of the reasons why the California Independent System Operator so strongly supports electric vehicles is because it also benefits grid reliability. It is another tool, and there's many things you can do with charging algorithms to support the grid. We have to connect these dots, and I think this is one of the key things that we're meant to be doing here every year is to market attunement and attuned as well to policy developments, and that's what I think the plan achieves. So I do want to thank all the stakeholders again for their support, and I think this is going to produce some important progress for the state on many levels. And with that, is there a motion to move the investment plan?
I move to approve item 4.
Is there a second? Second by Commissioner McAllister?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay,
Sorry,
all in favor say aye.
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 That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to item 5, FreeWire Technologies.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Larry Riera. I'm staff with the Fuels and Transportation Division, here to present item number 5. This agreement is funded through the Clean Transportation Program. In December of 2018, the Energy Commission released a nearly $10 million solicitation for manufacture of zero-emission vehicles and zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. The intent of the solicitation was to develop and expand ZEV supply chains in California. FreeWire Technologies is proposed for a $1.9 million funding. FreeWire manufactures innovative electric vehicle charging products into the market. Their novel technologies, business approach, and strategic innovations provide options for customers that would like to offer charging. These are customers that may not want to invest in stationary electric vehicle infrastructure or in dedicating limited parking real estate for charging. A result of this innovation is effective mobile charging technology. This method may eliminate the issue of electric vehicle squatters overstaying their allotted time in dedicated charging parking spots, blocking the charger for the next user. Consistent with the presentation we heard in item 4 a few moments ago, the Clean Transportation Program continues to deploy innovative and transformative technologies. The agreement with FreeWire proposes to acquire and install manufacturing equipment and tools. This equipment will be used to manufacture electric vehicle charging products with integrated energy storage in the city of San Leandro. The project will leverage over $2.1 million in private investment that will create jobs in disadvantaged communities while also increasing the scale of electric vehicle charger production. Staff is also recommending approval of staff's determination that this project is exempt from CEQA. Staff would note that a representative from FreeWire is here to present remarks and provide any responses to questions. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Martin Lynch. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of FreeWire, so thank you today for having me here today to present. I'll keep my remarks brief. We are an electrical vehicle supply equipment as well as an electrical generation equipment company, 5 years old, based in San Leandro. And we currently produce a mobile electrical vehicle level 2 charger as well as a generator based on lithium-ion batteries. This is 100%, 80 kilowatt hours in a mobile product. We are currently getting ready to launch our fast charger product that's based on 160 kilowatt hours of built-in lithium-ion batteries. That is quick on deployment, low cost, zero emission, and is unique in that the burden on the grid with respect to power, and I've heard a number of presenters as well as the commission today discussing the infrastructure issues on electrical vehicles, electrical vehicle supply equipment. We require virtually no infrastructure. It's simply a 20 kilowatt 208 3-phase or 240 single phase line that connects to our product, and you're off and running. You got a fast charger that's putting out 120 kilowatts of power We're agnostic to any type of electrical vehicle. That means we'll take Nissan Leafs and Teslas, anybody else that'll come up to our station. Our product is going to be manufactured and is currently the mobile product being manufactured in San Leandro. And we're asking for approval of the grant today to support the expansion of our manufacturing lines to 3 manufacturing lines. They'll be capable of producing up to 40 megawatt hours of electrical vehicle supply equipment, as well as electrical generation equipment, producing 0 emissions, creating jobs, both technology and direct manufacturing jobs. It'll support the test, the manufacturing, the tooling, and all output of the product in the manufacturing area that we've set aside in San Leandro. It'll also double the space that we utilize today for manufacturing. I also want to note that as we launch our fast charger at the end of this year, we've already sold half the product that we can produce this year. We expect to sell out all of our first quarter 2020 production line by January. So getting this manufacturing support is urgent, as any young company needs enormous amounts of capital to support producing their products. So the advantages, obviously, are that we're creating jobs in technology, we're supporting public charging, we're supporting lower infrastructure, low power load on the grid, and support of 0 emissions. So with that, I'll answer any questions or comments.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay.
Thank you.
Monahan?
Yeah, well, I think this is a great example of innovative solutions emerging from the marketplace around how to deal with the fact that we have a problem in terms of refueling electric vehicles, especially in multifamily dwellings, in certain locations where it can just be hard to access a charger. This is like an out-of-the-box solution, in fact, a mobile solution for charging vehicles. So I think it's a really interesting project, and I'm hoping that it's California orders that are coming in for the free wire technology. I'm actually curious about who's ordering it, who's using it, and how they're using it.
Any other comments? If not, is there a motion for item 5?
I move to approve item 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Scott. All in favor say aye.
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 That motion passes unanimously. Let's move on to item 6, Energy Pro version 8.0 residential compliance software.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Larry Fraze. I'm a senior mechanical engineer in the Building Standards Office and project manager of the compliance software. I'm here to ask for your approval of EnergySoft's Energy Pro version 8.0 software as an alternative calculation method for showing compliance with the 2019 Energy Code for newly constructed low-rise residential buildings, additions and alterations to existing buildings. Staff has confirmed that the applicant is in compliance with the requirements of the adopted alternative calculation method approval manual. CBEC Res was approved in May 2019 as the CEC's version of compliance software, and by approving Energy Pro version 8.0, the building industry will have another choice of software with an alternative user interface to demonstrate compliance with the 2019 Energy Code before the effective date of January 1, 2020. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so thanks, Larry. I really appreciate all the diligent work. I've had a briefing on this, you know, we're now in a paradigm where the back end is the same for all these tools, and the front end is really what changes, and it's really a matter of sort of consumer preference in terms of, you know, what you're used to and what you like to look at on the screen, and why you do a lot of the compliance work. So the professionals out there, you know, a lot of them rely on this tool, but the substance behind the scenes is the same as any other tool, or if you were to use CBEC Res directly. So it facilitates the marketplace. It's a good thing, and we're lucky to have good vendors building tools that people use. So obviously, I'm in full support. So I'll move item 6.
Is there a second for item 6?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Douglas. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Monahan absent. Let's move on to item 7, City of Linwood.
Thanks, Larry.
Good morning, Chair Harshfeld and Commissioners. Ron Yasny with the Efficiency Division. I'm with LAFO, which is the local Assistance and Financing Office. This item is a ECA loan at 1%. ECA stands for the Energy Conservation Assistance Act. The loan is for the city of Linwood in Los Angeles County. It's for $1,734,000 plus, and the city will be leveraging our loan with its own funds of a little over $453,000. The total project cost would be just under $2.2 million. The loan will fund efficiency projects throughout the city. They will include exterior lighting, street lighting, pool pumps, transformers, and HVAC systems. The benefits include savings of over 1,314,000 kilowatts of electricity and over 400 therms of natural gas. The estimated annual savings for the city is over $140,000 in utility costs, and that creates a simple payback of 12.4 years. Staff has determined that this loan has complied with all ECA program requirements, and staff is seeking approval of a resolution approving this loan agreement and adopting staff's determination that the action is categorically exempt from CEQA. Staff counsel and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to Commissioner McAllister. Yeah.
Thank you, Ron. I would just point out, I mean, we all know ECA and what a great program it is. I would just point out that this particular project, it has a real diversity of items that it's funding, and it highlights the fact that this program really avoids the low-hanging fruit problem where you're always looking for the quickest, simple payback and, oh, we can do this one but not that one. Well, with a portfolio like this, you can do pool pumps and HVAC and some of the longer payback kinds of measures and roll it all up in a nice bow and do something that's financially sound and still creates enough cash flow to pay back the loan over time. So really the best of what ECA sort of was created to achieve. So if there are no other comments, I'll move item 7.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Scott. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Let's move on to item 8, Regents of University of California on behalf of Davis.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Scott McCarthy from the Office of Compliance Assistance and Enforcement. The Title 20 Appliance Efficiency Regulations require that appliances sold or offered for sale in California be periodically inspected and tested to determine conformity with the applicable standards. This proposed contract with UC Davis, California Lighting Technology Center, or CLTC, will enable testing of appliances to support compliance, enforcement, and data collection efforts. The CLTC employs experienced professors and trained technicians to perform the testing work and provides valuable educational opportunities for students. Staff recommends approval of this agreement with CLTC. The funding for this contract is from the Appliance Efficiency Enforcement Subaccount. Thank you for your consideration. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
Any public comments? Any questions?
Okay. All right. So thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. And I'm not sure how much my colleagues know about the enforcement activity, but it's really where the rubber hits the road on appliance standards. The legislature gave us this authority to fine folks that for being out of compliance, to really go out there and find places where there might be issues in the marketplace that where manufacturers, really the whole supply chain, might be out of compliance with our Title 20 appliance efficiency regulations. And this kind of effort where we're actually taking stuff off the shelves and testing it, making sure that it complies with the letter of our regulations. And in lighting in particular, there's a fair amount of technical detail there and some expertise required. And so the CLTC is really the preeminent, I would argue, facility for this, certainly in the public sector in the nation. So, and we've played an instrumental role in getting it started way back in the day, and it's great to see them flourishing and getting industry partnerships and really getting a global reputation. They're working in Mexico now. It's really it's a success story. And so having them be the sort of accountability pathway for the marketplace in California in accordance with our regulations in Title 20 is really appropriate. So fully support, and I'll move this item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Scott. All in favor say aye.
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 The motion passes unanimously. Let's move on to item 9, ICF Incorporated.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Rizaldo Aldas. I'm with the Energy Generation Research Office, Energy Research and Development Division. And I'm here to request adoption of Sequoia and your approval of a revised project with ICF Incorporated called Comptonville Biomass Energy Project, also known as the Forest Biomass Business Center Bioenergy Facility, Gellerman site. The California Energy Commission actually approved this grant for an earlier version of the project at its October 3, 2018 business meeting. However, that grant was not executed because the team found out that the high interconnection cost and unknown environmental remediation cost would put the project at a very high financial risk. And so the project team set out, evaluated alternative sites, conducted due diligence to a new site called the Gellerman site. So in addition to changing the site, the project is also increasing its generating capacity from 3 megawatt to 5 megawatt. Those revisions will not change the purpose of the scope of work as originally approved. Energy Commission staff has reviewed the lead agency, County of Yuba Planning Commission's initial study and mitigated negative declaration and conditional use permit number 2019-002 for the Forest Biomass Business Center Bioenergy Facility, Gellerman site, and has determined that the proposed project presents no new significant or substantially more severe environmental impacts beyond those already considered and mitigated. This project will design, construct, and demonstrate an innovative biomass power plant that will use robust biomass to electricity technology integrated with advanced emission control, state-of-the-art low water consumption technology, and the project will help reduce wildfire threats by consuming approximately 50,000 bone-dry ton of woody biomass annually. And this biomass will be collected from public and private lands and near Comptonville. So I request your approval, and I'm ready to answer any question. I also would like to acknowledge that representatives from the project team are also available to answer any question you may have. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, we have 2 public comments on this item. Let's begin with Kathy LeBlanc, Executive Director of Cantonville Community Partnership.
Hello, my name is Kathy LeBlanc. I am the Executive Director of Cantonville Community Partnership. We're a small community-driven nonprofit. Our tagline is rural people working together for safe, sustainable, and healthy community. I just really want to thank you for awarding this project in March of 2017 and then approving it in October of 2018. This has been a collaborative wide effort with the passage of Senate Bill 1122. We have many supportive partners at the local, state, and federal level, including our state senator Nielsen and also our Assemblyman Gallagher. This project will revitalize the workforce and economy of the disadvantaged community of the Yuba County foothills. The benefits of this project not only include job creation, but a reduction in forest fires by reducing fuel, as stated, 50 bone-dry tons a year. And it will also increase the health of the watershed and the environment in our area. Once again, I'd like to thank you for your consideration of our comments and hope you approve our EPIC grant funding to allow us to get under contract and build this thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's move on to Gregory Stengel, Phoenix Energy.
Good afternoon, or good morning. Greg Stengel, Phoenix Energy. I like the later agenda items. It opens up in here a little bit. I just wanted to come up here today to again say, one, thank you to the Commission for the diligent work you have done to support forest bioenergy. It has been an amazing slog, and we appreciate you sticking with it. It has been tough. And the bankruptcy of our great friends at Pacific Gas and Electric has not made it particularly easier. But this project aims to be one of the solutions, one of the tools in the toolkit to address this critical issue. I also wanted to, again, salute your choice in backing the town of Camptonville. If we have learned one thing in this business since 2006 is that you have to have a team of fighters to get this stuff done. And the town of Camptonville is exactly that. And so with that, I again just wanted to come here today to say thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Scott?
All right, well, thank you both for taking time to come to the meeting today. It's great to see you and great to know we've got a team of fighters working on this project. I know for sure that we do. There's a lot of perseverance that has to take place in this space. Building these kinds of projects is pretty tricky and has taken a lot of diligence, great work by the staff, great work by the project team to really pull this and put it together. And it's an important component, as you heard in some of the comments, in order to take some of this forest waste that we have and figure out how to make use of it. So if there are no questions or other comments, I will move approval of item 9.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Douglas. All in favor say aye.
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 That motion passes unanimously. Let's move on to item 10, cost reductions, advanced technology for solar modules.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Katarina Gerber, and I'm here today with Energy Generation Research Office at the Energy Research and Development Division. And today we seek your approval for 3 proposed grant agreements from competitive EPIC solicitation titled Create Solar. This funding opportunity aims to increase penetration of solar energy in California through technological advancement in thin film photovoltaic technologies and development of unique markets and applications in solar sector that aren't achievable for conventional silicon-based PVs. The proposed grant agreement with UCLA will fund research advancing the properties of transparent organic photovoltaic materials. Power conversion efficiency target for these organic PVs is 15% and transparency target is at 30%. This proposal is innovative because it will integrate developed solar modules into small smart greenhouses and test their performance and effects at plant growth. The proposed agreement with Tandem PV Incorporated will fund research developing tools for low-cost scalable fabrication of perovskite on silicon tandem photovoltaic modules. Fabricated perovskite on silicon tandem devices will have power conversion efficiency of at least 25%, and the efficiency will be certified by an independent laboratory. The innovative manufacturing process will allow rapid in situ upgrading of existing silicon panels and enable much higher efficiency due to the added layer of perovskite PV material. And last but not least, the proposed agreement with the University of California, San Diego will develop low-cost manufacturing approaches for high-volume manufacturing of perovskite and silicon tandem photovoltaic modules. And this proposal is innovative because the developed deposition method will allow to fabricate solar devices with uniquely textured surface, which will allow power harnessing under cloudy conditions or in the late afternoon. And the projected power efficiency conversion will be at least 32%. Staff recommends approval of all proposed agreements, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Great, thank you. I will say I did ask for and get a briefing on this item this morning. My concern was that thin film not be competing directly with where crystalline has gone, because there was heavy investment in film earlier on, and silicon basically is film is 20% of the market now. It's 4%, and so I'm satisfied though, because this really is designed in a way that complements what's the role that silicon is playing and can do some things that silicon can't, and so that really makes sense to me. So I wanted to thank the staff for the briefing. Vice Chair Scott, did you want to speak to
Yeah,
this?
I might just add, I do think this is a really smart and thoughtful set of projects that we have here. I think increasing the cell efficiency will be really great to see, increasing the power conversion efficiency that we will see, and also the light transparency component, I think, as Kat highlighted, makes these really quite innovative, and also the places where these technologies have the potential to be able to be used, especially on greenhouses. So if there are no other comments or questions, I will...
Excuse me, before the vote, I just want to make sure there was a call for public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just to make sure.
Yeah. Is there anyone who'd like to make a public comment? Okay. Thank you for that, Alan. Okay. Were you about in the middle of making a motion?
I will move approval of item 10.
The motion for item 10. Is there a second?
Second.
From Commissioner Douglas. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Let's move on to the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner McAllister. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Lead Commissioner reports, starting with Commissioner Monahan.
Well, really, it's been all clean transportation program all the time. So I'm excited now to turn attention to next year's investment plan, which actually the planning should have started yesterday. But I wanted to just talk a little bit more about this piece around community engagement, and just say, I think maybe with that maybe there's the closest with EPIC program, but we should just be thinking about, as we're learning sort of what works and what doesn't work, how do we share that across to make sure that we can all learn from each other in terms of what does it mean to do effective community outreach, and how do we do it in a way that is, we need to make sure that we don't broach any, we want to make sure that we have a fair process. And so outreach is always, challenged by this. Well, how do we make it fair outreach when you're doing outreach to community organizations? And I think, we're willing to try to take that on, but it's not very easy, I would say. So I'm looking forward to kind of continued conversations about this, so that we can all figure out, well, as we're doing these programs, what are the best strategies for engaging communities in authentic ways, and really trying to diversify the mix of candidates who apply for our grants.
Yeah, so just a few things. I did spend a week on vacation between the last meeting and this meeting, so I only have 3 weeks of stuff to go over. But I wanted to, well, first of all, just mention, Chair Hochschild, you made the point at the beginning that California really is an incubator and really sort of leading the charge on a lot of these things, and that just has not been more evident to me than in the last week or so with the federal backsliding on lighting standards. And a lot of people looking to us and our partner states to hold the line on that. And I think, it's lamentable. It's a bad decision that's been made at the federal government. Really deaf to the vast, overwhelming majority of public comment. Clearly, there was just a decision that was just going to be implemented, whether or not, whatever stakeholders said, really. And it's rolling back lighting standards and sort of sitting on your hands and not updating lighting standards, which is also was announced as intent at the Department of Energy. It's anti-competitive, it's anti-environment, it's bad for consumers. Luckily for Californians, it's probably illegal. So I think we're going to do everything we can to hold the line on that. I have to say probably, because I'm not the lawyer, and we'll leave that to the Chief Counsel's office to figure out, and work with the Attorney General to figure out what the path forward is. But really just a horrible signal. And California, I think, sort of in relief, in high contrast, is sort of now in the lead even more than we have been. So that's, relish that fight for sure, but wish we didn't have to fight it. So a couple of really great workshops together with, in the IPA process, wanted to just highlight together with Commissioner Scott. One was on building decarb, really great workshop. Commissioner Monahan was there with us, and Leanne Randolph from the PUC, and Edie Chang from ARB, and Mark Rothleader from the ISO. And so, you can just tell how much congealing there is going around on the need to decarbonize our buildings, really as a chief building block of getting to our carbon goals. Really terrific job by staff putting it together, and I think laying the good foundation for for that conversation going forward. Not an easy lift. In new construction, we're sort of getting a handle on it, but in existing buildings, it's going to be a big lift, and we need solutions. So we got a lot of good people working on that together. I wanted to say, or let people know that the AB 802 benchmarking dashboard just went live, I believe, early this morning. And I'm looking at Mike and Christine over there, and that's a big thumbs up on that. And it's been a long time coming, and really just a very consistent effort in this commission to get our data tools in order, to kind of create the analytical foundation, to really implement the letter of the law, AB 802, which it started out with commercial benchmarking and now is also collecting information for our multifamily buildings across the state. And the disclosure piece of that for commercial buildings has just kicked in earlier this year, and the dashboard now that shows all that information is actually up. And so you can slice and dice and get a really visual, visceral sort of understanding of the landscape of the commercial buildings across the state above 50,000 square feet. So it opens up all sorts of potential to understand the building, that sector, the commercial building sector, and now the multifamily sector. And opens up possibilities for targeting programs, for channeling resources, for expanding the range of covered buildings. And so I think it's really happening exactly the way we had wanted from the outset when we worked with Doss Williams on that bill. And so it's really playing out nicely, and I just encourage everyone to look at it. I do want to thank a few people. Jennifer Nelson, Troy DeRye, Eugene Lee, Eric Jensen, and Ronnie Raxler, who have been really kind of on the front lines of this, working with stakeholders. And then Brent Kelsey as well. And then Eric Lyon, actually, also, he worked on this as an intern about a year ago, doing a lot of the back-end data stuff. And now just this week has joined the Energy Commission as staff. And so it's a really good success story there as well. So anyway, really look for great things to come. I think we'll have a press release about that probably tomorrow. Or a blog post or something along those lines, but really looking forward to having that out there for the world to use. And then finally, just wanted to, all of my colleagues know about this, but I wanted to just remind everyone that next week is the National Association of State Energy Officials annual meeting in Manhattan Beach. All of my colleagues, unfortunately, with the exception of Commissioner Scott, who would be there if she could, are going to play a role in that. And Commissioner Douglas on offshore wind, and there's a transportation panel that Commissioner Monahan will be on. And hopefully we're going to get Mayor Garcetti, and that'll be a nice entree to talk about all the wonderful things that are happening in LA. And Commissioner Hochschild will welcome you that day. So anyway, it's a good opportunity to have California shine and to really work with all of our colleagues in state energy offices across the state, across the nation rather, and 6 territories, who will all be in Manhattan Beach with a whole bunch of stakeholders talking about all the great stuff they're doing at the state level. And really, as I think the theme is emerging clearly, that the states are where the action is. And we all have different solutions that work and that we can share, and we can really build momentum. And that's both on the just sort of extreme end of the clean energy revolution, but also just on the nuts and bolts stuff like weatherization and the state energy program funds, and just getting the workaday policies implemented to do right by the citizens of all of our respective states. And NASIO does a really great job of facilitating that conversation and lobbying on behalf of the state energy offices in DC, working with all of our electeds there. So anyway, it's going to be a good agenda, very substantive, some nice field trips. People be able to get to see Lacey and some of the other, the center, Edison Center out in Irwindale. At DWP is going to show some of the board members, Castaic and some of their battery storage projects. So it's good sort of leadership position for California, and hopefully we'll be locking arms on some of these policies and moving forward even more than we already are. So it'll be fun. So and there is still space. So if you want to go down and avail yourselves, you can still do it. I don't know if there's hotel rooms, but there's definitely space at the conference. Okay, so that's it for me. Thanks a lot.
Okay, great. So not too much to update on. I also had a little bit of time off, so that was fantastic. It's pretty much all IPER all the time, Integrated Energy Policy Report. So that's been fun. We have had a chance to, one of the things I really like about it is we pull together experts kind of from around the country, around the world, and hear from them on these critical energy topics. So I will be looking forward to the next few that are coming up as well. I did want to give a couple of personnel updates. One of my summer interns, Mariam Ashgari, has gone back to UC Irvine for the school year, so goodbye to her. We will miss having her here this summer. She did some great work. My intern, Claire Sugihara, who's sitting over there, she's kind of waving shyly at you. She has been here a little bit over 18 months now, and she has done fantastic work. She's from UC Davis. So during the school year and also during the summer, helping pull together, all kinds of information that's been incredibly useful to my office, technology readiness levels, manufacturing readiness levels, all kinds of information on biomat and ports, and if you name it, she's probably looked into it for us. So I just want to wish you the best of luck back at school. It's been fantastic to have you here. Alejandra Hormaza, who's sitting right next to her, is going to be here for a few more weeks, and then she will also be returning to UC Irvine. But since she's here, I'd like to just take a minute to acknowledge her. It's always fantastic to have the enthusiasm and engagement of the interns, and they do fantastic work for us. And I also really wanted to acknowledge Monica Shelley, who was my administrative assistant. She is fantastic, and my heart is a little broken, but she has gotten promoted and gone on to bigger and better things, and so I really want to wish her well. She's already started her new job. I'm very excited for her, very sad for me in my office, but she just was fantastic, dedicated, committed, every day came in, very friendly, very capable, always had a smile, always making the office just a wonderful place, and then just incredibly competent all of the time. And so she will be missed, and I also wish her the very best of luck in her new role. And for the meantime, I have Victoria Sandoval Moreno, who is helping out while we are looking to hire a new admin for my office. So those are my announcements.
Great. All right, and I also don't have too much to report. In the past month, I was looking back at my calendar to see what I might want to talk about, and I saw all these vacation days, and I thought, oh my God, what did I do? And I looked at them, and there were about 12 days, and then it came back to me that I had a really wonderful time with my family, camping and road tripping in Utah and going to Colorado, and how I could not remember that just shows what the days were like when I got back. But nevertheless, nothing to report this time. I've been enjoying the IPRA workshops, the SB 100 workshop, and just really digging in and getting ready for a busy fall. So thank you.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm glad people are taking vacations. This is good. And we're in, a marathon and not a 100-yard dash. And I really do want for all of us to have a balanced, healthy life. And I think we'll be a lot more productive and happier as a result. So I'm glad to hear you had a good break, and it made me jealous. Utah sounded gorgeous.
I won't talk about Costa
I'm definitely jealous. I also just want to thank Commissioner McAllister for the NASIO chair role you're playing. I think it's so valuable, that position. We haven't talked a lot about it as a group, but this forum is a terrific one, and you're absolutely right. That's where the action is. There's been what I'd call sort of a trifecta of energy disasters from the Trump administration in the last few months. It's the undoing of the methane rules, the undoing of the lighting standards, and the attempt at unwinding the fuel economy. And all three of those, I hope, will ultimately be successful, and I actually believe we will be successful in prevailing long term. But the action and leadership and communication and collaboration at the state level is where those battles are ultimately won and where the foundations are laid for success. So thanks for that, and I look forward to joining you on Tuesday. I've been speaking regularly to the incoming employee gatherings when we do these. I don't know, it's every month or two, and I really hope other commissioners, as you're able to do this, and we're trying to get that. My commitment to Drew is to try to have one of us give a welcoming remark to every single group. But just the group I spoke to yesterday, 2 PhDs, incredibly diverse from all over the world and enthusiastic, and it's just great to see the talent coming into the commission. Probably my highlight of the last 2 weeks was the offshore wind negotiation with the Navy. So we've been working closely with them, spent the whole afternoon with the Assistant Secretary of Defense, Robert McMahon. Really appreciate his openness and flexibility, and we ended up spending much longer together. We were on the same flight home that got canceled, so we had the whole evening with him and his staff to visit. he's in charge of many other projects, including building the wall. So we had a lot to talk about. But he and his team were terrific in this meeting. We had Congressman Carbajal, Congressman Panetta, Assemblyman Jordan Cunningham was there, a number of the other agencies, and again, my extreme gratitude to Commissioner Douglas for her leadership on that, and we're looking forward to a successful outcome long term. I wanted to say just the two things that I think, from my perspective, have been the highest profile events that I've been involved with at the Energy Commission, since I started as chair, have been our electrification symposium, which we did in concert with EPRI and CAISO and Silicon Valley Leadership Group in UC Berkeley this summer, and almost 500 people. Great discussion and momentum, and the staff did a fantastic job pulling that off. And the SB 100 workshop, also a home run. Really, really well organized. The details were attended to. And I add to that, actually, Commissioner Douglas and her team on the Native American Summit, also an incredible home run. So not everything that we do is going to be a home run, because we sometimes foul out, but I feel like we're on a roll, and I just want to compliment that. With all of those, one thing that strikes me about what works is when we collaborate well with other agencies, and you could really feel it in the room, most notably in the SB 100, where we're required by statute to do this with CARB and PUC, but the rapport between the staff, between the agencies, is just really healthy, and that's what we want going forward. So I just want to thank all the staff for that. Going forward, the next big thing I have coming up that we're pulling together in terms of a symposium is going to be on lithium and this vision of creating a lithium valley in California. So we're going to attach it on one side of the Bay Area Battery Summit, which is in November in Silicon Valley, and bring in the stakeholders who are involved in lithium development, investment, and the end uses of lithium together. I've been sharing this with the governor and the governor's office on this can be a huge new industry for California. It could long term, as we have 40% of the annual global demand of lithium, we have the ability to produce that in our state, right? And there's these new discoveries. It's very significant. And we have the end use market is here with energy storage, electric vehicles, and the potential is there certainly to track back the intermediate industries like cathode manufacturing and so on. So really excited about that, and we'll be sharing more as we get closer to that. The last thing I want to share, I've been doing monthly open office hours once a month now for staff who want to talk about any issue of concern. And one issue that came out of those is the suggestion that we do, and I think it's a magnificent idea, an internal Energy Commission staff conference, actually just for staff to kind of exchange what they're all working on, because we have so many disparate programs and divisions, and people want to get to know each other better and want to better understand what they're doing. So I'm going to be working with Drew on this, and Tara's going to take a first crack at an agenda, and we'll get input from all the commissioners and staff on that, but hoping to do that sometime in the next 6 months or something. And then I guess the other highlight, we had a problem we resolved with Karen Ross very successfully on Commissioner Monahan and I, just on a transportation-related function. I just really appreciated your team's diligence on that, and that worked exactly how I think we should. The issue bubbles up, we talk about it internally, get on the same page, have a collaborative dialogue, and we fix the problem. And so thanks again to your team for that. And that's it for me. Let's move on to Executive Director's report.
Thank you. Just a couple quick things. First, as you probably all know, the legislature session ends this Friday, and we are in the process of collecting legislative proposals for next term, and so we have a due date of mid-October. So we have collected some, and we're going to reach out to you to discuss those, but wanted to let you know that that deadline is coming up. Second, want to thank you, Chair, for acknowledging Carousel Gore. This is the first time we've got a fully dedicated EEO officer. And I joked with her this morning that my goal is for her job to be very boring. But the fact is, with 700 people together, there's tensions and frictions, and it's just really critical that our staff feel like they've got a place that they can go. There's a person that's going to hear them out and keep the information that they learn confidential, and then deal with it as appropriate. And then finally, In our Unsung Heroes series, I want to ask from the Fuels and Transportation Division, Tai-Ying Zheng, to please come up to the podium and just tell you a little bit about her. You know, we have an award ceremony, but this is for the folks that sort of stay under the radar, and Tai-Ying is a classic person in that regard. She's quiet, but she's got a brilliant mind, and she's got an intellectually powerful voice. She's a PhD in chemistry, which itself tells you she's got to be pretty bright. And she helps in a lot of areas, but particularly in cutting-edge biofuels and hydrogen, where we're looking for renewable feedstock. And she just brings a level of creativity to trying to crack these sorts of nuts. So we wanted to provide an opportunity to just have you meet her and see her and give her a hand.
Hey, Drew, can I add to this? Because
Please.
I got a little feedback from Elizabeth and Kevin, who also said really nice things about you, and that you even get comments coming in from businesses who are working with you through our grant programs, that your supervisor gets positive feedback about you. So just want to say thank you for all your great work.
Thank you. Thanks for all the good words.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to Public Advisors Report. Jen?
Thank you. And I think today's the last time I get to come before you all at a business meeting as the acting public advisor. So thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a great opportunity. And I just wanted to leave a remark. You had mentioned something, Commissioner Monahan, about outreach efforts and how the Energy Commission can collaborate with every division that is working on improving our outreach to communities. And I'm going to put a plug in for the Public Advisor's Office as Noemi Gallardo gets started. She's got a great team in the Public Advisor's Office who has a great start on things like lists of entities to outreach to for specific reasons and specific areas of the state. And there's just a lot of energy in being able to assist everyone at the Energy Commission to collaborate and also to know what each other are doing and what's working well and how to make improvements. So on the other issues that I'm working on with Chair Hochschild, we've started our EPIC calls for our grant recipients, and I'm just enjoying working with staff on working on our grant process and how we can make improvements to streamline those things for everyone who's going to be working in our programs now and in the future.
So Jen's been doing magnificent work on this. She's called every single recipient of a grant from our Clean Transportation Program. Now she's in the middle of the EPIC calls. Then we're going to do ECA and then GERDA, and developed a very comprehensive set of recommendations on how to improve the process, and working through with Drew and staff on that. Just spectacular. And she will be moving upstairs to the 3rd floor, just down the hall in a few weeks to one of the offices. So good to have you with us there. Let's move on to public comment, if we have any. Hearing none, Chief Counsel's report.
No report, thank you.
Okay, I think we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.